Hey guys, and welcome back to Confessions of a Doctorholic. If you're new here, my name is Hafsa and I'm a general surgery resident, and this podcast is where I share real stories from behind the scenes and inside the hospital. And today's episode is one of those stories that isn't dramatic. There's no trauma, no emergency, but it stayed with me in a way that I didn't expect. So I met this patient in the ICU. He was an older gentleman, very calm, very gentle, very humorous. The kind of patient that you just naturally like, a very relatable person. He had come in after a hip fracture, and initially he was actually doing really well. He was recovering. We even started to wean him off higher levels of oxygen support. So from a medical perspective, things were moving in the right direction. He was just in the ICU because he was on this thing called a BiPAP and then high flow oxygen. And then when he went into normal oxygen levels that are tolerated on the regular nursing floors, he was transferred there, awaiting bed placement at his skilled nursing facility. But what I remember most about him wasn't his medical condition. It was how much he talked about his son. Every time I went into his room, he would mention him, how proud he was, how good of a son he was, how much he was looking forward to seeing him again. And he would always ask about him. I don't remember seeing the son ever, like visiting his hospital room. And I don't remember them having a phone call over the course of my shift. But I distinctly remember how much this dad loved his son. And I also remember thinking, that's really lovely. Like, I can genuinely tell this dad loves his son. So, as I mentioned before, this patient improved significantly, that he was ready to leave the ICU and move to the floor, which is a great sign. Then overnight, everything changed. He coded. There was no reason that we could tell, and this is me talking to you guys in hindsight, but he coded and they did CPR for a very long time, and unfortunately, he didn't make it. It would have been like 4:35 a.m. So we started trying to attempt to call his son after this situation happened. So we call and we call and we call, and there's no answer. Hours go by, still there's no response. And I remember thinking, that's so bizarre, because from everything that Dad had said, they seemed really close, or like, I guess that was an assumption that I made. Eventually, around 3 p.m. the next day, the son calls back. And I don't know what I expected, but it was definitely opposite of what I got. He was casual, super detached. He said something along the lines of, oh, I was going to visit him once he got to the nursing facility. And I remember being so disappointed, which I know might not be fair, because this could be like a coping mechanism for the son. And I don't know his full background story. I don't know their relationship. I don't know if something happened in the past. I don't know if he had another situation that made him stay away from his dad at the hospital. But it was just so difficult with how highly his dad spoke of him. I was told by the nurses, even when he was coding, he was like, tell my son that I love him, which is such a beautiful response from the dad. So I guess what stayed with me, because in the hospital, you do often see one side of the story. The way patients talk about their families, their expectations, their hopes, those are things that really stick with you. And then sometimes you see the other side and they don't always match what you expect it would. And I think this applies outside of medicine too. We all have ideas of our relationships, what they mean, how strong they are, but sometimes those expectations aren't equally shared. And that's a really difficult thing to witness, especially when someone isn't here anymore. I do sometimes think about that son and wonder if he wished that he visited his dad in the hospital, or took a phone call for him, or if he regrets not picking up the phone call. I'm not really sure. All he cared about at the moment was how the funeral was going to get organized. Confession. Sometimes what stays with you isn't how a patient died, it's what they were waiting for before they did. So I want to ask you something. Have you ever realized that a relationship meant more to you than it did to the other person? How do you feel about that, and how do you react to that? Let me know. Alrighty, guys, that's it for today. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you next time.